I'm giving away this fantasy-themed mystery box. It contains merchandise from The Witcher, Game of Thrones, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I'll even be throwing in this Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings starter kit. So if you want to get your hands on it, stick around to the end of the video to know how. In the modern age of blockbuster filmmaking, major franchises have become the life force of Hollywood. Every major studio is trying to have their own major movie series that will excite audiences. There are a lot of ways that studios will go about trying to build a franchise, but the most popular seems to be going through nostalgia and familiarity. Any classic or beloved movie that remotely has any potential for a sequel or a reboot is being brought back to life and ran until it dies again. In terms of a film series, there has always been something perfect and satisfying about a trilogy. The 3 movies in a series approach has proven to be a real sweet spot as it allows the franchise a distinct beginning, middle and end. But don't get me wrong, we have had some great additional films in a series such as the ongoing Mission Impossible movies and John Wick Chapter 4, but mostly the results are massively disappointing. So here are 10 examples of franchises that should have been left as a trilogy. Starting off this list, we have Indiana Jones. One of the key examples of a trilogy that should have been left alone is the Indiana Jones series. Throughout the 80s, Steven Spielberg delivered 3 of the best adventure movies of all time, but the return of the series since has not managed to capture that magic. Spielberg's return with the 4th film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, was uneven and overly cartoony that shockingly incorporated aliens into the story. As much as it hurts to say it, the newest attempt from James Mangold falls into a similar trap. Yes, it has some solid action beats, but it quickly goes off the rails while also failing to justify its existence as a film. Coming in at number 9, we have Halloween. The classic horror series Halloween has become a staple of the genre, and the debut film is a must-watch every October. However, Halloween is also a prime example of a franchise out of control. The first movie was a pretty straightforward slasher from the legendary John Carpenter, and while the second film wasn't on the same level, it was still enjoyable. The third film, Season of the Witch, gets a lot of hate, but the out-of-nowhere decision to move entirely away from Michael Myers was such a big swing, it's hard not to respect it. In the 4 decades since, the series has released an overwhelming 10 additional films, which range from absurdity to a complete rip-off from the original. At number 8, we have Superman. Although the Christopher Reeve Superman films are all-time classics of the superhero genre, and many of the best modern blockbusters take direct inspiration from them, it's hard to defend Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Although Superman 3 was not as well regarded as the first 2 films, The Quest for Peace was a whole new low. Making things worse is the fact that this movie almost didn't happen at all. Reeves wasn't confident about returning, and the failure of 1984's Supergirl did not install any confidence in the studio, and there was a lot of behind-the-scenes issues that threatened to derail this movie. Despite all of that, the movie was still made, and it was easily the worst entry in the Superman series. Coming in at number 7, we have Pirates of the Caribbean. When Disney announced that they were developing a Pirates of the Caribbean movie based on the famous Disneyland ride, many people were understandably doubtful. However, the first film, The Curse of the Black Pearl, was one of the best fantasy adventure films of the 2000s, and it even earned Johnny Depp an Oscar nomination for his role as Jack Sparrow. The 2 sequels may not have been great, but they were still sweeping adventure epics that were unlike any other movies at the time, and they became favourites for an entire generation. However, even the most die-hard Pirates of the Caribbean fans will often pretend that the 4th and 5th films never happened. Both On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales are extremely disappointing entries in this franchise, and they did more harm than good for the long-term appreciation of this series. And at number 6, we have Die Hard. 1988's Die Hard was one of the most iconic movies of the 80s, and I don't know why, but people consider it a Christmas classic. And it's no surprise that sequels of the movie were followed soon after. But this was another instance of a series going on for too long and losing what made it special to begin with. Die Hard 2 and Die Hard with a Vengeance may not be as good as the first movie, but at least it attempted to stay in its own lane. 2007's Live Free or Die Hard and 2013's A Good Day to Die Hard abandoned all those attempts entirely. They made the series devolve into a cheap, generic and over-the-top films of all time, and any remnant of the original film's heart and humour was completely wiped away. Here at the halfway point, we have Terminator. James Cameron has been a Hollywood legend for decades, and the 2 films that are most responsible for establishing him are Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The first 2 Terminator films present some of the best science fiction of the 20th century, and they are justifiably considered a timeless classic. While Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines did not match the same quality as the first 2, but it was nowhere near as bad as the franchise would get. After Rise of the Machines' disappointment, there have been 3 separate attempts to revive the Terminator series, and they have all failed badly. After the substantial letdowns of Terminator Salvation, Genesis and Dark Fate, it's understandable for fans to wish that the franchise would have just ended with the conclusion of Rise of the Machines. Coming in at number 4, we have Shrek. The DreamWorks animated series Shrek is one of the most famous and beloved animated franchise of the 2000s. The first two Shrek movies are genuinely considered to be some of the funniest and most entertaining films of all time, which made the immense disappointment of Shrek the Third all the more pronounced. After the hate that the third Shrek film got, it's understandable that DreamWorks would want to produce a fourth quickly in order to win fans back. Unfortunately, Shrek Forever After ended up increasing the decline of Shrek because it was too much Shrek material too quickly, which ended up watering down the franchise's name. Thankfully, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish managed to breathe some new life into the Shrek series, so maybe the fifth film in development may be a lot better. Taking third place is Bourne. There were few action movies as universally enjoyable as the Bourne movies in the 2000s. The Bourne trilogy starring Matt Damon was based off a series of books from author Robert Ludlum and released between 2002 and 2007. All three films were widely praised as they were a key part of establishing Damon as the movie star that he is today. However, the decision to continue with a fourth film, The Bourne Legacy, without Matt Damon hurt the series significantly. Even when Damon returned for the fifth film in 2016's Jason Bourne, it was already too late, the damage had been done. Although the movie was a decent financial success, it generated very little conversation and had minimal lasting impact. Audiences had moved on and very few people cared about seeing the new Bourne movie. Taking second place on the podium, we have Transformers. Michael Bay's Transformers movies, for a while the pinnacle of absurd Hollywood spectacle. As terrible as they could be at times, there's no denying that audiences loved them. The first three films starring Shia LaBeouf were pretty solid tied together though. They build off one another and tell a cohesive story and have a consistent visual style. However, Michael Bay transparently threw all of that out of the window with a fourth and fifth film. Instead of leaving the first three films to exist as a decent trilogy on their own terms, the money of the franchise was prioritised. And so the garbage fires of 2014's Age of Extinction and 2017's The Last Knight, starring Mark Wahlberg, were produced. And finally, taking the top spot, we have Men in Black. It's pretty easy to pretend that the Men in Black series starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones remained a trilogy. That's because the fourth film, 2019's Men in Black International, is so disconnected it feels like a completely different franchise. However, the movie does exist, so the franchise unfortunately doesn't qualify as a contained trilogy. Despite a solid cast consisted of Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Liam Neeson and Emma Thompson, this movie was not well received in the slightest. Men in Black International was widely considered to be one of the worst blockbuster films of 2019, and its massive failure at the box office put an end to any aspirations to revive the Men in Black franchise. So that's my list. Let me know what you thought about it and let me know in the comments below what franchise would you have put on this list. And if you want to win this fantasy themed mystery box, all you need to do are these three simple things. Leave a like on this video, comment on any of my videos, and subscribe to my channel, and one lucky random subscriber will be announced on the 31st of July. You can even hit that bell icon to keep up to date with my latest uploads and giveaways, such as my comic book giveaways every fortnight. Lastly, before I go, I just want to say a big thank you for watching and make sure you smash that like button so it can get recommended to other people. So with all of that being said, I will see you in the next one, but until then, take care.